Hey guys, Justin here. Thanks for joining me. Welcome to another quick tutorial on using EasyEDA to design Eurorack modules. That's generally what my tutorials are geared towards, but of course this would apply to other aspects of electronics design. So today we are going to talk about using this extension, SVG import extension for EasyEDA. Okay, this is in a GitHub repository. Which is XSRF, and I'll put a link to this inside the description of this YouTube video. It's a great, simple little plugin extension that you can install in EasyEDA. He's got a quick little demo here on how to use it. Talks about updates, usage, any issues, and then also he's got a whole section here on how to use Inkscape to make your designs and then import them into EasyEDA. Now, he even states originally he did not use didn't write this for Inkscape. He wrote it for OpenSCAD, but he went through and figured out the best way to use Inkscape to import into EasyEDA, and that's what we're going to do. Now, Inkscape, if you didn't know, is an open source vector drawing utility. It's cross-platform. I use it on a Linux machine as well as Windows. It'll run on Mac as well. So it's a great utility. Now, I'm not going to cover a ton of aspects of Inkscape. There are tons of tutorials that are much better or made by much better qualified people than myself. But I'll just maybe get you going and show you how we can design panels and bring the graphics in to EasyEDA. So let's go back to EasyEDA. Here's a quick little panel here, a little 4 HP. I always want to say 4 horsepower, but 4 horizontal pitch. 20 millimeter wide panel. So let's say this is what we wanted to bring graphics in on. Of course, we could try the EasyEDA import utility here. So we could use this tool, the image import, but I want to demonstrate why it's not really the best idea. So let me go ahead and pick an image. I'm going to do this circle right here, and this is just a basic circle created in Inkscape. Can't really zoom in on this, but it's a basic circle, and this looks pretty circular. Let's go ahead and insert that in. Now let's take a look at it. Alright, we got some issues, right? It's not perfectly round, neither the outside or the inside. So the import function in EasyEDA leaves a bit to be desired. So thankfully, we have this extension to use instead. So let's talk about how we get started designing graphics for a panel. The first thing we want to do is export this as an SVG, scalable vector graphic, and import that into Inkscape. So let's go to File, Export, and we'll export it as an SVG. Oops, I gotta save it first because I was messing around. Alright, it's saved. I go to File, Export, SVG. You can leave this generally as it is. We want to export it at one scale, and depending on what you want to export, you can unselect things. So let's go ahead and export it. And we will go to this directory, save it here. Alright, now let's switch over to Inkscape. I'm going to go to File, Import. I just created a new file, the default file that you get when you first open Inkscape. We're going to click on Import, and I will go again down to here and open it up, and there we go. So you'll see we have our panel design here. So this is important because we can use this as a template in order to design our graphics around it, get the spacing exactly how we like it. The first thing we're going to do is select this, and we're going to ungroup it. So I'm going to ungroup it. So basically, when it gets imported, they're all grouped together, and now we want to be able to select the individual pieces. Now you'll notice that there's a frame around this that you can't see. So go ahead and highlight that and delete it. We don't really need that. I'm not sure what it is, but it comes from EasyEDA when you export the SVG. Now, normally when I work in Inkscape, I like to get rid of this page, the page border, but it's useful in this case. So what we want to do is we want to place our panel right on the corner there. You can kind of split the line there. So we'll get the center of this line going down the center of that, and the same thing with this line here. Get it roughly centered on there. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can always nudge your graphics around, but that's a good starting point. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to look at our layers tab here, and we will add a new layer. This one's going to go above the current layer, and we'll call it artwork. And then we want to select it so it's the one that's we're going to be working on. So now what we can do is we can do some drawing. What are our options? We can, of course, we can do text. We can insert text in here. Let's say our first jack is going to be an input jack. So I'll put that right there. Now you can use the built-in align and distribute tools in Inkscape. Right now it's selected on last selected. So if I have that highlighted and then I highlight this jack hole, I can center it vertically like that. There we go. If you wanted to get, let's say we wanted to center something vertically, we could draw a temporary line and we could center everything on that line if we wanted to. We have our text done. So let me just explain why we can't import this exactly as it is now. It needs to be, everything in the drawing needs to be converted to a path style. Path, I don't want to say object because right now it's an object, but we need to convert it to a path. So if we look down here at the bottom, it states that this is a text. Okay, so that will not import into EasyEDA, EasyEDA easily. We need to make some changes here. The way we do that is we click on the item and we go up to here and we do object to path. Now you see something changed, and then if we hit the node, we can either hit N key or we can click on this button here and we click on it. Now we see that we have these nodes, right? You can even drag them and move them around. So you need those nodes to be present. That tells you that this is a path. Now we still got possibly one more thing to do. If we click on it once, we get down here where it's a group of two objects. Okay, so we can ungroup that, and then if we wanted to move individual parts of that text around, we can do that. So now this is ready to be imported. So let's do a couple other easy basic shapes, and then we'll do an import, and I'll show you how that works. Let's say we just wanted to put a square around this. We could highlight this, we could create a rectangle, and we can drag and make our square. Okay, right now it has an outline but no fill. And the way you can change that is down here. I'm going to hold the shift key down and get rid of the outline, but I'm going to click here. I'm going to click here on the black to make that to fill in that rectangle or that square. Okay, so now we have a square. Remember what I said though, we have to have paths, not objects. If I click on it, it's going to tell you it's a rectangle. So that's the key that tells you that you need to convert this. So we're going to go object to path like that. Now let's look at it. If I hit N for nodes, we'll see that we have those 4 nodes just like the other one. And now keep in mind your silk, if you're going to design this with your silk screen or with copper, you would want to only do black and white. Obviously you can't really do different colors and import that you know, a multicolor panel or something like that. That's just not, I don't believe that's possible with JLC PCB. So just keep that in mind. It's easiest just to do black and white. Okay, let's do a couple more shapes. Let me show you how you do a line. This is a Bezier tool. A Bezier is a mathematical description of a line, basically. So I'm going to click, if you're drawing and you want to draw straight lines, you can hold the control key down and it snaps it to either an angle or a straight line. So I'm going to snap it, I'm going to click here, and then I'm going to click over here, but I'm going to hold and drag. that's going to let me make a curve, right? So I got a nice smooth curve there. I'm going to let go of the left button, and then I'll right click to end the curve. Alright, so now we've got a basic line. So you might say, oh, well, that's a path, so we can import it. And we could import it as a trace, but we can't import it as an SVG, like a graphic type design thing. So let's click on it. We'll see at the bottom it is a path, but if we hit the node, we only have middle nodes. Okay, so this is not going to import the way we want, or at least the way I want, into EasyEDA. So to fix that, we'll go up here to path, and then we'll do stroke to path. Alright, so now you'll notice all these nodes pop up, and that's telling us that we now have a region that we can import easily into EasyEDA. Alright, what else should we draw? You got other sort of primitives, you got circles. You can even do, if you wanted a hexagon, for example. I think I did that in the previous video. You can do that. Same thing though, you have to click over here. This is a polygon with 6 vertices. We're going to change that by going path, object to path. And we'll check it with a node, and we're good there. We have all our nodes. And let's go ahead and import this. So my next step is going to be to go to the layer menu, and I'm going to turn off the bottom layer. All I want to import is this artwork. I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm going to go ahead and save this as, we'll just call it panel test, and hit enter. Okay, so I just saved it. I'm going to go back to EasyEDA, and I'll go up here to the SVG import, and we'll do open the import dialog box. This is the box here. We're going to hit load file, and I'll go ahead and grab that panel test. Now I want to talk about the options on here. We've got SVG nodes, right? This is, we can put this into the copper, a solder mask, a silk screen, or the document. A solid region, so that could be copper fill or keep out, and it could be a board cutout. And then a track, which would be a board outline, but it's going to break all the curves up into segments, right? So you could, in theory, you could design a printed circuit board in Inkscape, you know, with nice curvy traces and things like that, and then import them as a track into your printed circuit board, and then just stick some pads there and make a pretty nice distinctive printed circuit board. I want to do that one of these days, but I haven't got around to it yet. Let's talk about the next section. It says import scale. So EasyEDA base unit is 0.01 inch, but we're using millimeters back in Inkscape. So I'm going to click on this millimeter, and it's going to change the scale factor. If you import your graphics and they're not the right scale, they don't fit on your panel correctly, take a look at these options. You got 3 options, mils, inches, or millimeters. Okay, and then finally you have to choose what layer this is going to go to. In our case, we're going to use the top silk layer, and it tells you that the SVG origin will be placed at the canvas origin. It's a little hard to tell in here because I changed the background color, but the canvas origin is right here, right? So it should import correctly. And I just hit import, and I hit close, and you'll see it imported, looks correct, right? Now once it imports, these are independent objects, so you can move them around. You can see it highlights it with white, which makes my choice of using white as the background maybe not the best. I'm going to switch right now, and you do that in the canvas attributes, which is a right click on the background, and I'll change the background here to, let's do a gray. And then the grid color, I'm going to change it to black. Let's see if that looks better. There we go. So now when I highlight one of those things, I can see that it's highlighted and move it around. There is no, that I'm aware of, well, let's see, this is dimensions. Okay, there is, as far as I know, there's no easy way to scale this. You can go over here and you can change the width and the height. So for example, I can make this 0.5 wide, but it doesn't automatically lock the dimensions, you know, to make a correct transform if you want to keep the X and the Y locked together. There is a locked button, but that's not what this does. Right, see, I just changed that one. It did not change that. So that is not locking the dimensions, okay? Let me do a couple. Let's see, can I do undo here? There we go, undo it back. Same thing with this. You can move it around. You can't really edit it, so you can't go in here and grab a node and make your changes. If you realize you made a mistake, you'll need to go back into Inkscape, resave it, and then when it's time to import it, you have to go back to here, open import dialog, and reload that file. It will not automatically reload it unless you click and reload the file that way and then do an import. Okay. Let's see, what else is there to tell you? Well, let me show you an example of a panel design for this panel that I did, just so you can see maybe a little bit what's possible. Full disclosure, I am not, and nor do I consider myself a graphic artist, but I just want to pass on a little bit of knowledge I found, maybe get you guys up to speed and get you going with your own panels. Let's go ahead and do this one. And it's opening. So here's an example of a panel design for this panel that I created, and you'll see the shapes that I used have all been changed into well, actually this one hasn't, so this is a good example. Let me show you what happens when I import this into EasyEDA. Remember I said that you need nodes at each of these corners, right? And right now the nodes are just in the center. So let me show you what happens. This is a good example. I'll go back to EasyEDA and I'll go to up at the top, SVG import. We'll open that dialog, load file, choose that one. It's going to be the same. It's millimeters. It's going on the silk screen, import. Okay, you see that it's messed up, right? That's because it's using those nodes and it's trying to do its best. And the nodes are on the center line and it has to fill in the region, so that this is what it ends up with. Okay. Another thing that I noticed is that if you try to do a Control-Z, an undo after you import, it does not unimport it. So just something to keep in mind. You got to go in there and quick delete them all. So let's go over again how you would convert all these items. I'm going to go ahead and go to Layers. I'm going to turn off Layer 1. Make sure everything that I wanted stays, okay? And so if I click on this, this is text. You can see down here. So I'm going to go ahead and go Path, Object to Path. I'll click on the text here, Path, Object to Path. Let me highlight all these guys here. You can highlight the whole thing and do Object to Path. Now let's see what happens. If you look at the bottom, it says 9 objects selected. Alright, so it's saying it converted. Let's look here. If I click on one of these lines and I do a node, it still hasn't converted, so let's change that to a path. Let's change it to a stroke, I'm sorry. Stroke to path is what we want. There we go. See that? That changed it for us. So if it's a Bezier line, then you need to do stroke to path. And if it's an object like this, so let's zoom in. Same thing here. We're going to need to do stroke to path to convert that guy. Zoom out and zoom in on this path, stroke to path. And let's look at these triangles up here, make sure they're good. Yeah, so this one looks good. This one looks good, I think. Inkscape needs to refresh. Yeah, so we're good now. I'm going to save this one. Even all the text, if you look at it, it's got all the nodes. Let's save this guy again. Now remember what I said, when it's time to import, you have to go to SVG import and import. You got to choose that file again. Even though it's highlighted here, it will not reload it unless you choose it again. And we hit import and we close it. There we go. That looks about right, right? So now we've got proper layout. You'll notice it's nicely centered. So that's just the trick with lining up your origin. And it's still hard to see on here. Let me change the background to black just to show you real clearly where the origin is. Background black, grid color white, update, boom. Now we can see the origin. It's hard. It seems like it's hard to see. Maybe there's a way to change the colors. I don't know. But that pretty much covers it for me. You can of course do your 2D render. Right, so we can look at it in 2 dimensions, and we can change the color if we want to see what it would look like in yellow, for example. What we black, or you can change it to green or whatever. And then also we can close that out, and we can of course do our 3D rendering, and we can take a look at that. Looks pretty good. The question that remains is how much resolution are you going to get on your silk screen? You know, what quality level will it be at? I do have an order that's at JLC PCB right now with a little bit fancy graphics, and I'm waiting to see when it shows up how good it looks. Hopefully it'll come in good. I have heard people complaining about the quality from JLC PCB. I do notice on some of mine, they're certainly not perfect. They have flaws on them. I'm looking at one right now, and it's kind of got almost like spots, I would say, like drips. I don't know. On the one I'm looking at, the silk screen looks pretty good. It came through pretty well, and this was just using the text within EasyEDA. So I'm curious. I'm excited to see how it's going to look with the panels I have out getting made right now. I think that's it for now, guys. If you have any questions, as always, please feel free to drop them down in the comments. Go ahead and if you have any ideas for a tutorial you'd like to hear or see, just put those in there too. And if it's something I think I can tackle, I will. And I appreciate your sticking with me for 21 minutes now. And I hope you enjoyed the short tutorial. And take care. Talk to you guys soon.